Hello, everybody. This is Dom from Upstate Supernatural. Just would like to let everybody know we have a guest with us. His name is Bill from Dover Paranormal, and this will be interview with a ghost hunter. We're gonna ask some questions that we kind of already have allotted for the guest, and then after that, we're gonna go ahead and take any questions from any of the viewers. We do have Nikki Paranormal with us in the hangout. And towards the middle of the show, we'll probably start taking questions. And I'd like to thank everybody that's here tonight. Hopefully you're staying nice and cool and hydrated. And yeah, let's go ahead. Thank you, Bill, for being here with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And I'm gonna start out with if you could tell us your name and possibly are you with a team or a group?
Yeah, my name's Bill Highland. I'm with Ghost and Spirit Paranormal out of York, Pennsylvania. There are 5 of us in that group.
And how long have you been investigating in the paranormal?
Um, Roughly 6 years, give or take, a few months.
What caused you to be interested in the field of ghost hunting or in the paranormal field?
Um, Back in the late 1980s, I had an experience that couldn't get my head around, and to this day, I have no idea what it was that I saw or experienced, but that's what got my initial interest. And of course, back during that time, it wasn't, should I say, socially acceptable to talk about things like that. You know, been real quick to be labeled a wacko or whatever. So I just kind of let it go for a while, and in the mid 90s, these reality paranormal shows came on television, and before long, it was a little more socially acceptable to talk about things like that, and that was my opportunity to get back into it and try to figure some things out, without having to be in the shadows, if you know what I mean.
All of us have some interesting stories. Is there a particular story that you would like to share? For the interview, we like to try to keep it real to an aspect of, if there's any interested individuals that are ever wanting to join the field, they have, real stories of paranormal stuff.
I've had a lot of experiences, and a lot of things that I documented on audio and video. But I think the most interesting to me is we had done an investigation at a church here in Flowertown, Pennsylvania, and we had some security cameras set up in the hallways in the main chapel area, pretty much all over the place. And Don, the one member, one founder of the group, and I were on stage in the main chapel area talking, and one of the surveillance cameras captured in the hallway someone walked past the doorway. The odd thing is that we had a security camera set up in that hallway, and there was absolutely nothing recorded in that hallway. And yet on one camera, we definitely saw something walk by, and that's an experience that we call the walker, because we don't have any explanation whatsoever for that, other than it backs up a lot of the claims at that church. And a year later, we had gone back to this place, and we were setting up equipment in that same area of that church, and we recorded choir music. And this was 9:30 in the evening, and there's no choir anywhere to be found. So as far as interesting stories goes, I mean, that's the kind of thing that kind of keeps me going, because there's just no logical or reasonable explanation for either one of those two things. So that's one of the more interesting stories that I have. And of course, everything's documented. We still have all the video footage. We still have all of the audio. And I look at it constantly, trying to get my head around this, and it's just one of those interesting things.
How many how many investigations would you say you have probably been on?
Oh, roughly uh, 55, 60.
Okay. During an investigation, is there certain equipment that you prefer to use, like a K2 or a REM pod or a voice recorder, video camera, CCTV, spirit boxes, stuff like that?
Yeah, there is. I've tried all of those devices you talked about. And if you don't mind me touching off on some of that, I will.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Uh,
We do have a question a little bit later about your opinion on like spirit boxes and stuff like that. But
okay, well then I'll just hold off on that then. Actually, the favorite piece of equipment that I like to use are it's very simple. I like my video camera and my voice recorder, um, simply because there's no wiggle room between either one of those. You either document something or you don't. Uh, there's no there's nothing in between there, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. There's very few variables.
now, like K2 and stuff, is that something you also like to use? Just out of curiosity.
I don't use a K2. I use a trifield meter when I do use one,
Oh,
for the simple fact that I can ignore radio frequency and microwave frequencies, which is is a big problem with a lot of the meters because a lot of the meters detect all three of those types of energies. And I'm more interested in the electro or the magnetic energies, so I can filter out, the other two bands, and I don't use them by themselves. Um, I tend to use them along with other pieces of equipment. So if I would happen to, say, get a reading on my trifield meter, if I capture an EVP at the same time, there's correlation there, and that's what I'm really interested in is correlation of different pieces of equipment at the same time.
for you personally, I mean, I've asked this question numerous times, and I kind of tie it into, there's the hunt itself, and then there's the, going through the findings or the footage afterwards. What do you find personally to be the greatest part of doing an investigation about doing a ghost hunt?
It's Well, I mean, I enjoy it all. I enjoy the actual investigation. It's exciting. All of us that have done it know what I'm talking about when I say that. Sometimes the review process can get tedious, especially when you're looking at 4 or 5 voice recorders with 6, 7, 8 hours of audio on each one. I mean, it's a time-consuming, grinding process. It's not that I don't enjoy it, but you definitely have to take breaks from it. And of course, you know, whenever you get that magical second where you record an EVP or something anomalous shows up on video, that's what is exciting to me. That's what keeps me going.
And to any new people that might be interested in joining the field, is there any tips that you might have for them?
Yeah. The first and foremost is um, don't always believe what you see on TV. In fact, don't believe any of it. Find out for yourself. Um, and the other thing is know your equipment. Understand what you're reading. Understand what it measures, and what it means when you do get those data points. I think that's extremely important because I don't think enough people spend enough time to understand what they're using and how it works. So I would definitely say that know your equipment.
What what is your viewpoint on things like the spirit boxes?
It's funny you bring it up because that is one of the things I wanted to talk about. Several years ago. Now, first, let me say I'll never say that a spirit box can't um, communicate with something paranormal. I have no idea. Every time it's used, you may be communicating with something paranormal. The problem with that is there's also a, at least equally the chance of it producing something from radio waves is just as likely, if not more likely, than you're talking with spirit. So until you're able to eliminate that variable of radio frequency, I don't feel that it's very credible documentation. Because if there's a slightest chance that it is radio, you know, personally, I don't buy into that. And until we can control that variable, I'm not going to hold a lot of weight on it. I know a lot of people do, and you know that's fine. But my perspective is, if there's a chance of contamination, I'm going to throw it away.
And what about Ouija boards? How do you, what's your take on Ouija boards?
To be honest, I have never touched one in my life. I really don't have an opinion one way or another, because I don't have any experience with it. Um, it's just one of those things that I've never touched off on. That's all. So unfortunately, I don't have an opinion on that.
Oh no, that's fine. J- Basically, the question is there certain devices or applications you feel work better than others? And that could be, like a certain version of a K2, a certain version of a camera, a certain version of like a application on a computer. Is there certain devices that you have had a chance of using that you feel work better than others, and which ones are they?
Well, like I said, getting back to the EMF meters. There's, I don't know, the most popular ones. There's probably 5 or 6 very popular EMF meters out there. I definitely like the tri-field meters, and there's 2 reasons for this. Number one, like I said, you can filter out the different frequencies that you're not looking for. Number two, especially the K2 meter, it's extremely sensitive, and it does exactly what it's designed to do. It picks up every little variation in the electromagnetic field. I mean, everything. And on top of that, you really don't know what type of signal it is. So I think that the tri-field meter is, I think, in my opinion, is better than the rest, just for that simple fact. You can control the variables a little bit with that. Um, yeah, I think it's the tri-field.
Okay. What would you say? A lot of people have interesting stories, and I mean we can go a little bit more into detail about this a little bit later with any questions that pop up or so forth. But a lot of people, when they're watching anything having to do with ghost hunting or having to do with movies, with any form of ghost hunting, they care about the demonology, or they care about the scary stuff. So I mean, the question, I guess, is in essence to that. But what would you say is the worst thing you've ever came across with investigating, with doing stuff out in the field?
It's funny, Don, the guy that I work with here, he's going to laugh at this because I had I don't know exactly what it was that I encountered. It happened at a cemetery. It's the same cemetery I've been to, many times before. I've always had positive EVPs. It was always a tranquil, quiet place, never any negative feelings or any problems like that. And one evening, we went up there, and from the minute I walked through the gates, I just had this uneasiness. And the longer I was there, I found myself fighting this fight or flight reflex. Everything in my body was telling me I need to get my things and get out of there now. Um, Now, of course, I fought my way through this, and then we did our investigation. But I got to tell you, it was the most uncomfortable feeling that I ever recall having, and I had no reason to feel this way. So I don't know if this was a negative entity trying to influence me, or if it was something else going on there. But to me, that was uh, the one experience that I've had that really left me uncomfortable. In fact, I haven't gone back there since that happened, and that was several years ago. And they laugh at me because they'd love to go back, but I just won't do it. It's just, I felt that way for a reason, and I'm going to respect that reason. So um, that was my one experience, but I have no idea what it was. Um, I just don't.
What is your theory of why or how ghosts exist?
Well, it's a tough question. Um, I don't have any doubts that there's something there. I don't know if it is a ghost or a spirit, but I know there's something um, lurking that we just don't understand. Um, I know that there's something there because, like I had mentioned earlier, I've experienced it. What it is, your guess is as good as mine. I've never seen any evidence to say that what's out there are ghosts or spirits. They very well may be. They may not be. We don't. We just don't know. Um, it could be. Wow. I mean, it could be something that we're not even capable of understanding. I mean, I just don't know. Um, so I really can't answer that in a definitive way.
Okay, no, that's fine. And then, basically, were you ever a skeptic or somebody that didn't believe? Normally, the for the last question, normally everybody would say that usually a ghost or a spirit is somebody that passed away that they either haven't passed on or they're kind of stuck. So in essence, this is a tough question to ask in that essence. But were you ever a skeptic or a non-believer of the existence of what you're searching for right now?
Before my experience, yeah, there's no way you could have convinced me that there was anything like that until I experienced it for myself. And I tell people that all the time. The only difference between me and them is they haven't experienced it yet. And when they do, they'll know exactly where I'm coming from. So yeah, I was skeptical of anything, in that realm at that point. But once that happened to me, like I said, at that time I was probably, I don't know, 21 years old, maybe 22. Um, so back then that's just a bunch of fairy tales. But when I experienced it, that's when that stopped. But yes, I was before that. I was very skeptical, and in fact, I was almost cynical about it at that point.
And I'd like to bring up anybody that's viewing that would like to ask any questions. Feel free to write it in the chat. I'm pretty sure Nikki's still here with us, and she's trying to keep a tally of the questions that have already been asked. And we'll start asking those questions as well. I know you, and I don't have this as like an allotment question, but I know personally that you do create certain software for paranormal ghost hunting. For instance, the Connect software that you have out there. Would you like to explain a little bit about that?
About the software itself,
Yeah.
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 Well, what happened was when Microsoft released their Connect for Windows, the first version and second version, they also released open source software for developers to develop software for the gaming industry and other areas of interest like shopping, security. There's all different types of applications. So anyway, they released this software development kit, and that's where I first started playing around with it and understanding how to use it. From that point, I started getting some ideas in my head. How could I try to apply this to what I'm trying to do? And as far as the Connect goes, if I may sidetrack a little bit on this,
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
the reason that I'm so interested in the Connect is because I feel that what's being done out there now with the standard investigating equipment, your K2s, your REM pods, all the equipment that we use out there, it seems to me sometimes that we're kind of spinning our wheels. So we have to start finding ways to uh, look at things from outside the box. And I saw this Connect. And let me say this: if we were to actually document something on a Connect, it's gonna, and I can verify that it was something paranormal, which is next to impossible to do. But for argument's sake, say that I would. This would completely change all the ideas of what paranormal is or the way we perceive it. Simply for the fact that anything to be captured on a Connect would have to have some kind of mass to it. It wouldn't be an energy form. It wouldn't be a mist form. It would have to have some kind of mass. So let me just say that right off the bat. And that's kind of the direction that I'm taking in my approach right now is I'm trying to look for uh, alternative pursuits.
Techniques and equipment.
Right.
Yeah,
And I'll get into that a little bit also. But back to the Connect and the software. Once I uh, had some ideas of what I wanted to try to do, um, I found some software called Pika software, and basically it allows you to build applications. And the one piece of software I put together for the Connect was called Paratouch. That was the first version of it. And what this allows you to do is to have a interactive screen on a laptop, and you can activate the buttons and move the cursor on your screen just simply by moving your hands um, from a distance of, I don't know, maybe 10 feet, 12 feet away from the Connect. The odds are pretty slim that anything would ever manipulate that mouse and click one of those buttons to make a sound or a word or a number. Um, but you never know till you try. Um, so that's why I put that together, and then I improved upon that in a second version where I added photographs um, and made the mouse a little more sensitive to movement. Um, and right now with the Connect version 2 that I haven't put anything together for that yet, but I'm working on that. It just takes some time because I got a lot of things going on. I did send a few of these. I did send this program out to a few people to be beta tested. I'm still waiting to hear back. I know some people are waiting on a few different parts that they had to get for their Connect. But yeah, it's the software is called Pica. It's a free download. Anybody that wants to start developing simple little programs or applications, you can use that to do that. It's a nice little program, and you don't have to necessarily know a lot about code to put a software program together. That's what's pretty nice about it. It saves me a lot of work. Now, if you get back to the SDK that Microsoft released, and if you develop software using that, you're going to have to be familiar with Visual Studio. And there again, Microsoft releases that. But all you got to do is register it. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can develop through that. Either way is good. One's just a little harder than the other.
I've actually had theories about the CCTV systems and the equipment that we're using. If they are ghosts or spirits or people that used to live, they're gonna know what a camera is. They're gonna know what a voice recorder is. They're gonna know what a surveillance system is. If they don't want to be seen, they'll dodge it. They'll get out of the way of it. So I mean, the true only way to move on into a better technique is actually hidden cameras. It's hidden devices to try to capture things if they don't want to be known. But then, there's a spot on that switches into, well, aren't they trying to ask us for help? Aren't they trying to communicate? Sometimes it feels like they're not. But
Yeah, I agree with
question, Nikki, do you have any questions from the chat?
Actually, I do. Let's see. One of the questions is how many attach themselves to you, or have you ever had any attach themselves to you,
I
as in
have.
spirits?
I had an experience one time. In fact, it's kind of weird that that question came up because it was that exact night at that cemetery where I had that horrible feeling. It was the strangest thing. For the next several days after that last investigation, I would open my garage door in the morning and my toolbox drawer was open. And of course, it's just me and my wife here at the house. So, of course, the first thing I do is I go say, hey, when you're finished there, with the tools or whatever you're doing, could you close that drawer? Um, and of course, for a week, she fought me saying she wasn't out there. She didn't do it. She didn't. So I set a camera up out there and I documented that drawer coming open in the middle of the night. Strangest thing. I went out, did a cleansing. I did a spirit box session first, by the way, back when I still used it. And this is one of those instances with the spirit box that's hard to ignore. It was cussing at me. 5, 6, 7 word sentences just cussing at me. First of all, the FCC is never going to allow that over a radio wave. So that's kind of one of those things that's kind of hard to get past. But I did have that, and I think there was a chance that something may have been. I don't know that for fact, but the documentation that I recorded that night kind of leans me in that direction.
Okay, awesome. Okay, now another question is, as a skeptic of other BS, are you skeptical instead of what it would take for you to believe? So can you say that you 100% without a doubt believe in every aspect of the common paranormal realm?
Oh, absolutely not. There are things that I can say that I absolutely do believe in. I mean, I do believe that I experienced something paranormal. I'm not willing to take that leap of faith to say that I believe in all aspects of it. There's just some that don't make sense to me. Not that it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just, to me, it makes no sense. So I'm not willing to go out on the limb and say that I agree with everything, but certainly some things.
Okay. Another question is, how important is it to know how your equipment works?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. For instance, if you're walking around with a I don't know, I'm just going to say a millimeter, for example. If you're walking around with a millimeter and you're looking at all these readings, you have to understand what those readings are. If you don't understand what you're reading and what you're documenting, I mean, what exactly is it you're doing? It's just walking around, I don't know, just waiting for this thing to beep and not understanding what it's doing. It just doesn't make any sense. So you have to understand what your equipment is capable of doing, what it cannot do, and more importantly, understanding the data points that you're collecting and knowing exactly what you're reading. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's critically important. You have to understand your equipment, your cameras. You have to understand shutter speeds, and you have to understand the fact that when you're taking photographs at night, you can't do it holding it. You have to use a tripod. You're going to get blurred anomalous photographs, and things are going to show up that ordinarily wouldn't be there if had it been on a tripod. You don't hold voice recorders. Your fingers make noise. You have to understand what affects what you can do that will affect the outcome of the equipment you're using. And part of that is understanding how it works. So I think it's vitally important. Every piece of equipment you use, you have to understand what it does, what it's reading, and know how to interpret the information you're getting from it.
I do see another question right here. What supernatural aspects or paranormal aspects do you believe exist? And what are some that you feel could not possibly exist?
Okay. I don't believe demons, devils. Personally, I just don't believe that. There's nothing that ever led me to believe that they exist. I don't particularly come from any faith background, so that makes it even a little more harder for me to swallow. I don't know about angels or spirit guides. I've had some experiences where people have told me that I've had spirit guides with me. I can't confirm that. But is it impossible? I mean, none of it's impossible. Whether I believe it at this point, devils and demons, I'm just not buying at this point. However, my opinions can be changed on a turn of a dime in light of new evidence or a new experience that I may have. But at this point, I'm trying to think of something that I definitely know exists. I don't definitely know anything exists other than the experiences that I had. And I don't know what they are, so I can't say that for instance, do I think it could be a ghost? Possibly. Could it be a figment of my imagination? Possibly. I just don't know anything for fact, so I can't say that I 100% believe in anything that I'm experiencing.
Any of these questions, if you don't feel comfortable asking at any point, you're welcome to just let me know. But
that's fine.
I know some people have issues actually with the next question that I'm going to ask.
Okay.
You probably won't, but I do know some individuals do, and if they don't want to answer it, that's fine.
Mhm.
What is your personal feeling using like cell phone apps, like the Echo Vox? I'll even go as far as the Spirit Radar by Spud Pickles. Do you feel a true ghost box would have a better chance of making contact with a spirit? So it's technically two questions in essence. The first is, how relevant do you think the cell phone or even the tablet applications are for the field? And then, do you think there's a higher probability using radio, like a traditional radio ghost box?
All right. Well, first let me say, as far as cell phone apps and tablet apps and things like that, I do have some serious doubt about them. First of all, I have a problem anytime when you have a predefined word bank or built-in dictionary. I don't understand how the events are triggered that spit these words out. And certainly the phones themselves don't have the necessary hardware to do what people are claiming they're doing. Some cell phones have magnetometers in, sure, and they have some other pretty high-tech pieces of equipment. Just for instance, a Ghost Radar app. Cell phones don't have any kind of radar. I don't understand why cell phones have to be able to transmit and receive information while you're running the software program. There's just a lot of cracks in those hypotheses of how they work. And not to mention, every single one of those apps, every single one without exception, if you read the print on the software, one of the first things it tells you is that it's for entertainment only. Okay, so that should be a red flag right off the bat. I just don't think that they're capable of doing what people claim they do. Now, that's my thought. Am I 100% sure of that? No, I'm not. Again, you may be communicating with something paranormal every single time, but when you're inviting contamination, I just can't accept that. I have to throw that aside. Now, to the Spirit Box, the original Ghost Box or the PSP-7, same thing. I conducted some experiments alongside of an old Sony Walkman. I asked several questions several times over and over and over again for a predefined amount of time. And in that time, I don't know if I recall correctly, offhand, I had maybe 5 or 6 responses that I thought could be relevant to the questions that I asked. And then I did the same thing with the Sony Walkman. Now, the difference between the two is a Sony Walkman, I was listening to the UHF and VHF frequencies, which have no radio traffic on since all television broadcasts went digital. And I was able to scan the same way. I asked the same questions, the same amount of times for the same amount of time, and there was absolutely nothing. Not a peep, not one single syllable. I mean, nothing. Another experiment that I conducted was to build an RF shielding for the PSP-7, where you actually stick it in, some people refer to it as a Faraday cage, which is a little inaccurate, but regardless, when you stick it in there, all radio frequency stopped, and I got nothing but static. So I know without a doubt 100% that there's radio contamination in that device, and the hard part is, how do you separate the radio frequency from possible paranormal communications? And at this point, you can't. So again, if there's a chance of contamination, I'm just not going to buy it. I mean, there again, my opinion can be changed in light of some new evidence. So when someone can figure out a way to show me that they're able to control that variable, great, man, go for it. Figure it out, man. Make it work for you, whatever works. I mean, I'd be just as happy for someone if they figured out that it does work. I mean, we're all just grasping at straws here. So do whatever you think works, you know?
Nikki, did you see more questions as well?
Yes, actually. And one that was asked earlier was, have you ever seen any spirits?
I've the experience that I had, I didn't visually see it. So the answer to that would be no. However, I am convinced that I was in the presence of one, and I'll explain that to you. Short, I'll make the story short. I was in an in-laws house. They had a log cabin that was over 200 years old. It was a beautiful place. A hardwood, planking barn floor. I was laying on the floor watching television, waiting for my wife to get home. It was just me and my mother-in-law. She was in the kitchen, and she came through the living room and stepped over my legs, on her way up the steps. I felt the floorboards underneath me. I felt her house coat go across my legs. It was hot. I had shorts on, and I heard her go up the steps. And about 5 seconds later, she asked me if I wanted some coffee. Now, the problem was she was still in the kitchen. And at that point, every hair on my body stood on end. I know what I felt. I know I felt those floorboards moving underneath me. I know I felt that air go across my legs, and I know I heard her go up the steps. And I tell you, I didn't sleep right for a few days after that because I couldn't get my head around it. So did I actually see it? No, I didn't see it. But I'm convinced in my own mind that I experienced it, and I just can't. I can't to this day. I can't get that out of my head. It's like it happened yesterday. So no, I never actually saw one in front of me. No.
Okay.
I did see another one. There's actually somebody that's viewing. They're a newbie. They're very interested in the field, and they're watching some of the stuff on YouTube. They asked, being a newbie, is there like certain steps that are important when starting out in the field? Like, is it a good idea to try to do stuff by yourself at first, or with a friend, or is it a good idea to join a team or so forth? In your opinion.
My opinion was before I would do anything, I would try to define what my goals would be. Now, from my perspective, and in fact, I heard Dom, you mentioned something to this effect that there's different types of people in the paranormal community. Their goals are different. The reasons for doing what they're doing are different. So I kind of like see maybe 3 different types of people in this field. You have, in my opinion, you have the people that are, I don't know, we'll just call them thrill seekers. They're in it to, for the excitement, for all the great adventures they can have, and they scare themselves and they have good stories for their friends. You have those types of people, and they're out there. And you have people that are interested in documenting things in the paranormal. These are the people I call ghost hunters. They like to go out and they like to document things on their voice recorders and cameras and video cameras, and that's great. I mean, that's all important too. And then you have people like myself that are more interested in the factual side of it and the more scientific side of it. So it really depends on what your goals are. And in either case, like I mentioned earlier, I think the best place to start is do some work by yourself first. With your voice recorder. I'm not saying go to an abandoned hospital or anything like that. Do some work yourself and some research, and learn about different aspects of the paranormal field and what you're interested in, and learn as much as you can about that. And then seek out other people that have a common interest. Because the worst thing you can do, because I know firsthand, is to get with a group of people or other people that your interests are different, because there's going to be a conflict right from the beginning. It's hard for me to find a group to join other than the 2 guys I'm with and the other couple that I'm with, because we all tend to lean towards the more scientific end of it. I just couldn't imagine being with someone who's on the spiritual end. Not that that's wrong. It's just not the area that I'm pursuing. So spend some time for yourself, learn your equipment, know what you want to do. Then you find out some different groups or other meetups or some place where you can meet other people with the same interests. And then maybe join that group or work with those people to get some experience under your belt. And then usually by that time, you'll know what direction you're going in. and you'll be able to make your own decision from that point.
Very good advice. Very good. All right. Another one that I saw, I did see one on here that it said your most memorable experience when investigating, but I think we already kind of went over that with the other question earlier. And then the next one after that I see is you personally, and you kind of have answered this a little bit, but is there times where you prefer to go solo during an investigation, or do you prefer doing like a team aspect, like having a partner with you?
That depends what my goals are for that particular case. For example, I just did some experimentation on battery drains in haunted versus non-haunted locations. That's the kind of work I can do by myself. I don't necessarily need someone along with me to do that kind of work. But if I'm doing an investigation to document, if that's the night I feel like being a ghost hunter, sure, then we get together. But it just depends, I guess, on what my goals are for that particular evening.
Okay, and I'm kind of Nikki, do you have another question after that one?
I've got quite a few, actually. They poured in. It's been really great. Thank you, everyone, for these awesome questions. One of them being, what is your favorite tool?
I have several. I mentioned earlier I like my tri-field meter, but I also like my voice recorder, and I love my infrared cameras. I try to keep it as simple as I can. Those are the tools where I get the most useful information to this point. EVPs just completely fascinate me. Just for the simple fact, man, I don't have a clue as to where this stuff is coming from. It's just amazing. And the video cameras, of the thousands and thousands of hours of footage that we have 4 or 5 of them that are just mind-blowing. And all of that takes up a span of less than 20 seconds. So it's a good piece of equipment, and it's a painful piece of equipment because there's so much work involved. But those are my favorites. I think everyone has their own personal favorites, but those are mine.
Oh, don't I understand that one? Another question that we have, do you feel that consistency is lacking in the paranormal field? What part of do you think of the paranormal is not widely accepted due to the lack of consistency?
I think that's going to depend on who you ask. Personally, I think there is some inconsistencies. And the first is I know, I don't know if this has been talked about before, and chances are it has been. I think the biggest inconsistency is the scientific approach, or lack of. I think it's critical. I don't think it's very well understood by most investigators. And if it is understood, there's very little effort in applying it. Like I said, we have different types of people with different goals. But I'm going to touch off on this, and I may step on a few toes here, and that's not my intention. I think that, first of all, let me say that as far as paranormal theories, let's get into that just a little bit. I've searched high and low for years, and I cannot find one single example of a working paranormal theory. That's just kind of a word that's thrown out there. I don't think people necessarily understand what it really means. There are a lot of hypotheses out there, a whole lot of them, but I haven't been able to find a working theory. So let's all start there. And in order to develop a theory, you have to take a hypothesis that you come up with, which is basically an educated guess or a best guess of something that you observed or experienced. And you kind of throw that out there, and you try to develop a process or a testing procedure that can be repeated by other people to get the same results. And once you're at that point, then you have a working paranormal theory. So I haven't been able to find any of them yet. So that's one of the big inconsistencies, is the language that's used. theories, like I said, theories thrown out there. Where the ideas come from or the hypotheses, I can't track down. For instance, spirits use energy. You know, where does this come from? I mean, what is the basis for this? Or the one I'm working on now, flashlight batteries, drain faster at haunted locations. I'm working on that, and I'm working hard to figure that out. But there again, the idea has to come from somewhere. And when people have these ideas, they just accept it as fact and leave it at that. Instead of investigating it and trying to develop it further, they just abandon it and accept it as fact. And then when someone questions it, then they're threatened by it, or it just ends up being thrown to the side. I don't know if that's the most productive way to do that, but I think terminology is a big inconsistency. There again, I think it's based on your goals. What are your objectives when you're involved in this field?
Another question that I saw popped up. There's quite a few individuals out in the field or people that investigate that feel they're either an empath, they have foresight, or they're like a seer, like, psychic or medium type abilities. Do you feel that you think you have like any abilities when you're trying to investigate? Like, do you feel like their energy around you?
I think most of us experience this at one time or another. You're at a place and it just has a feel. You just we call it a vibe. You just get a vibe. It's just something about it. You
Yeah,
can't put your finger on
I
it.
call it the vibration.
Yeah,
So,
it's really strange. I do have, getting back to what I was talking about earlier about the spirit guides. I do have a very strange ability to hear things that no one else around me hears. I don't know if it's just because I have better hearing or what the case is, but the odd thing about it is every time I hear these words, they're the exact same words, and I hear them at different locations. And every time it's happened, I've had a voice recorder capture it, which is really strange. Excuse me, 4 times that it happened, and the words were over here. Um, it's odd. I can't explain it, other than, like I said, my best guess is I just had better hearing than everyone else. I don't know. But I'd had a very trusted friend of mine who is a medium, and which is a whole story that I can get into another time. But she's the one that told me that there was a spirit guide following me, and he was trying to get my attention. But yeah, that was very strange. But yeah, I've had that vibe. I've had that feeling. I don't know if it's something paranormal or if it's just instinct or just that gut feeling again. But yeah, I've experienced that.
and then I saw another one after that. Do you feel that there should be some sort of ethical guidelines put in place for paranormal investigators?
Yeah, we had discussed this before, and this is a very, very tricky area. The biggest stumbling block, I think, is number one. I mean, we could all agree on moral standards. I mean, that's just common sense. But it's hard to make standards or processes or procedures for something we don't completely understand. I think it would be a thing that would be constantly evolving based on new information. I think more of it is just common sense and good personal morals. Yeah, that's a tough one. And then another problem is, who is the body that regulates this? Where would you start with something like that? I mean, really, where do you even start?
Right. Yeah, that's always been my quarrel with it, as well as who do you govern as the tribunal?
Right, right. I mean, has anyone ever even made an attempt at doing anything like that you're aware of?
I don't know of anybody that has tried it yet. But I'm sure there's individuals that are trying to work it out.
Right. Yeah, wow. I mean, we all have our own standards that we work within our own groups, but like I was saying earlier, man, every group is going to be different, from one to the next.
I mean,
Um,
there is similarities between the groups. The ones, and it's been a question in the past of where do the people kind of find those guidelines
mhm,
of the professionalism, the privatism, the confidentiality things. And then there's the other groups that they don't hold any of that in Constitution. They'll say, okay, this is the greatest place to go investigate. And I actually know a group locally that did that. They went to college and they told the whole class this place that they investigated. And then there was squatters sitting in front of the house trying to capture stuff, and that family
right,
was devastated. They're destroyed because every single day there's cars in front of their house. They had no privacy.
right. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we do that have negative effects on other people, especially people that we're doing investigations for. So yeah, that's definitely something that you have to keep in mind. Now we use agreements with any clients if we're doing a private home investigation that we'll sit and we'll go over them and detail. We know when we leave that room what it is we're allowed to do with that information and what we're not allowed to do with that information.
Yeah,
Um,
I honestly do the same thing. I have forms that I have them fill out that
mhm,
I have a signature, and I've told I made it a policy now. If it's a home, every single home is private. Even if they're okay with people knowing about it, I personally would like to make it private, because if they move and I make it so it's public, who knows what's going to happen to the next people that move there. So any home, I always make it private, because I wouldn't want people squatting in front of my house. I mean,
right. Right. Well, we've never ever given out an address or a location of a place we've investigated that was private. Um, in fact, a lot of the times, even when the clients or the people that we're doing these investigations for give us permission to release evidence, if we feel or let me back that up, to release our findings, um, we don't necessarily always share that, especially if it's of a personal nature. We use our discretion, and we say, maybe we shouldn't do that because it is a little personal to those people. So, I mean, you have to take everything into consideration. Um, and sometimes the lines get a little blurry. So I always follow the saying: if there's a doubt, throw it out. Don't even take a chance with it.
it's we got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Is there any projects or any big things that are coming up for you that you'd like to talk about? I mean,
Yeah.
the interview is also about letting people know who you are, know what group you're with, any projects you have coming up, or stuff like that.
Um, well, I explained a little earlier about the direction that I'm kind of finding myself going on, which is basically I've taken all of the equipment that's being used out in the paranormal community, and I've looked at it and I've dissected and I understand how it all works and what it all does. And for me personally, I'm kind of, like I said, I feel like we're spinning our wheels. So I'm kind of looking in a new direction. One of those is obviously to connect to, but another direction I definitely want to take is in the environmental measurements and data logging of environmental variables in correlation with an EVP or an anomalous video capture. And these data loggers would include things like I don't know, EMF data logger, temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, ion counts, any environmental variable that could possibly change during, an event of an EVP or uh, video footage being captured. Um, we just have to find some correlation. We can't you know, just keep throwing things in the air and throwing a deck of cards in the air and hoping they all come down in order. We got to start trying different things and looking for different correlations. And because once we do that, then we'll actually be able to build tools and equipment to search in those areas. I mentioned this many times before. Um, how do you build a piece of equipment to detect something paranormal when we have no idea what the hell we're looking for in the first place? So, in order to get to that point, we have to find correlations between anything, that is solid, that can be repeated by other people. So that's the kind of direction I'm taking. I want to be more into the data points and the details of what's going on in the environment while these things are happening.
Also, like your software that you have coming out, if you'd like to give a shout out where one that's ready to be available, where they could pick that up or get in touch with you to.
Yeah, you can just get in touch with me. I mean, if you have this is for the Connect version 1, and you'll also have to have the proper cables. If you go to Microsoft's website, you can see what cables you'll need to hook your Connect up to a laptop. And no, just contact me through G Plus or my email, and I'll send you the link to where I have it. I'm not going to put it up in an app store, and I'm not going to sell it. I'm just going to, I want everyone to have this, to use it, to experiment, to play with it, see what you can document. There's no interest in making any money off of this or anything like that. I just did it just to try it, see what happens. You never know until you try. So that's why I developed that.
Yeah, it's very, very cool of you.
Yeah, like I said, I do have a few people. I threw the offer out on G Plus, or a few people that took advantage of it, and I sent the software to them. So I'm just kind of waiting just to make sure, it's buggy. I'm not sure how it's going to work on Windows 10 because I don't even know the variables of that OS. But I know it works with Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 7. So I know for those 3 OSs, everything's cool with it as far as I know. And anyone's welcome to try it. Just give me a holler, and I'll give you a download link, and you can check it out. Also, in that download is an installation video that shows you step-by-step how to set everything up if you're unsure. So I tried to make this as user-friendly as I could, so people wouldn't have to take the time to learn Microsoft Visual Studio or this Pica software. I mean, basically you install it, you plug your Connect in, and you start the program. So it's pretty simple, but I did send that video along with it just to show you step by step so there aren't any problems.
And Nikki, was there any more questions that we might have missed?
There's a plethora of questions, actually, and I don't think that we're going to be able to get to all of them. So, Bill, I put in the chat, and this is entirely up to you, not to put you on the spot, but I have all the questions asked throughout the entire chat compiled into a document. If I might be able to send that to you, you could review them. Maybe when you do a hangout in the future or something, maybe if you feel comfortable, you could address some of these if you wish. Just so you have them. They've been asked, and I don't have the person who asked the question itself this time. Unfortunately, my computer would not comply with that. One question, though, that I do want to make sure to ask is, how would people get a hold of you in order to contact you? Because I also would like to contact you about the equipment there that you just mentioned. How will we go about that?
You can get me on G Plus at Dover Paratech, or I'll just put my email address in here right now.
Here, I can actually add that.
There you go. And you can contact me through that, and I'll be more than happy to give you a download link.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll add that right in the description right here for you. Your channel is already linked into it, so anybody that hasn't checked out your channel, go ahead and check out Bill's channel. And if you'd like to contact him, I'm going to add that email in right here.
Yeah, there is. If you do get on the Google Plus and end up on my YouTube channel, there is pretty interesting video on there using that software and something extremely unexpected that happened that night. So that's pretty interesting. That's right.
All right. Yep, I have the email in the description for anybody that is interested. I'd like to thank Bill with Dover Paratech for jumping on and doing the interview with us. And if you guys haven't checked out his channel, check out the description below. His channel is linked into that as well. And we have our shows coming up this week on LPTV, Live Paranormal Television, on Thursdays. That's 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then we have our weekly show Friday night. We're doing the Steve Halte's live ghost box on our show Friday, 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then next Sunday, we'll be interviewing, everybody knows him as Southwest Ghost Hunter UK, but it'll be Stephen Morgans that we'll be interviewing next Sunday. And then the week after that is actually Brian Holloway. And if you haven't looked up to find out who that is, definitely do that as well. Check out the Connect thing with Bill. I've actually spoken to a couple people that actually have used it, and they're loving it so far. So after the interview, I'm probably going to talk to you about that.
All right.
But thank you, everybody, for viewing in. You guys have a lovely evening, and we will catch you later.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on board.